Yang ji jimbur zirdan nimi zhang zonen hunum jimbur nga gyata bakar targan zando shirmarto. Tumba dirje jan la ki sham tsar mechan rawar seringi zhang kamsa jagar tukji shan la yi larma. Jime panzo jala sara de gongje topan pawar shinji lo, gongje topan pawar shinji lo, gongje topan pawar shinji.
The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. In order to liberate all sentient beings, please generate bodhicitta before today's teaching. Today we will continue our in-depth, careful discussion of the profound sacred Sutra of Great Liberation. This truly profound Sutra of Great Liberation truly possesses immense merit, a profound and significant value that is often overlooked or misunderstood. Why do I assert this with such conviction? I believe that perhaps due to deep-seated historical reasons, or it could be that no one has adequately elucidated its importance within this specific domain or context. For a multitude of complex and interconnected reasons, it is now evident that many individuals, including even those who identify as Buddhists, do not have a truly deep and comprehensive understanding of this sacred scripture. Therefore, through this detailed and insightful explanation, I sincerely hope that in the near future, many individuals will genuinely come to understand the profound and truly inconceivable merits that are contained within the Sutra of Great Liberation. Not only should we truly understand its extraordinary merits, but more importantly, in our daily lives from this moment on, we should actively apply these principles. We should also try our absolute best to diligently make full use of the profound Sutra of Great Liberation. This is especially crucial and beneficial when we inevitably encounter difficult situations where our beloved relatives or cherished friends unfortunately pass away when such significant and sorrowful events happen. Some people really do not know how to do something truly virtuous for that particular person at all. But what kind of specific, meaningful actions would truly be beneficial and helpful for them exactly? Many people do not fully understand this important principle. So at such times, we would suggest that in the future, according to the established tradition of Tibetan, or if we are speaking of the Han region then, there used to be such a profound ancient tradition as well, historically practiced. Within a strict period of 49 consecutive days, one should diligently recite the sacred precious Sutra of Great Liberation for them every single day, faithfully and devotedly. I also genuinely think that for everyone present here today, when you yourselves pass away in the future, someone will also recite the Sutra of Great Liberation for you, or the confession text of the 35 Buddhas, or the Samantabhadra's aspiration to noble deeds. This is extremely beneficial. So, regarding our Sutra of Great Liberation, although it may be somewhat lengthy in content, it is still very necessary for the deceased to recite it once every day, continuing up to 49 days. In this important regard, we ourselves should also genuinely make this aspiration and firmly resolve to do so. Although we currently have various chanting rituals and specific rebirth rituals, some of which are quite significant and are also widely recited in the Han region, including the profound Heart Sutra and the revered Ksitigarbha Sutra. But more importantly, for the deceased, we should either recite collectively or individually. If you cannot find a group, then you can certainly do it by yourself. For example, if your beloved parents have passed away, or your beloved siblings have tragically passed away, or your dearest best friend has departed from this life, then perhaps, no matter how profoundly we miss them, or how intensely we wish them eternal well-being and peace, their absence remains a constant ache in our hearts and minds. They may not necessarily receive it. Nowadays, we are commonly accustomed to burning joss paper regularly, and there are also some other various traditional practices commonly done, but whether these actually truly benefit the deceased is hard to say definitively for certain. If you use the precious Sutra of Great Liberation for transference rituals, no matter who you are, whether you are a layperson or a monastic, if you recite it wholeheartedly, it is very meaningful. If you really can't manage 49 days, then the first 7 days, or 2 sets of 7 days, or 3 sets of 7 days are all acceptable. If you truly don't have time, then during the first 7 days, recite the Sutra of Great Liberation every day. I think this is a very important point. This is just one significant aspect. There's also another crucial aspect in many Tibetan regions as well. Indeed, this Sutra of Great Liberation is also used in prayer wheels. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before, but as for my very own personal prayer wheel, I truly think I've used it for well over 20 long years. Originally, it truly belonged to the revered Teacher Rinpoche in our monastery. He was a truly remarkable and extraordinary master. In the year of 1986, he transmitted the transmission of the Kangyur here at the Institute. Later in the monastery, he also transmitted the Kangyur twice. Each time he gave the transmission, it would last 4 to 6 months, but every day he was extremely, extremely diligent. Even back when the policies hadn't yet opened up, he always truly never gave up on his dedicated and persistent practice. Speaking of this prayer wheel, at that particular time, he was near our Luhuo County town area in a remote place called Jita Valley specifically. It was there exactly. During the day, regularly, he would go to the nearby countryside and work together with the local lamas diligently. And then at night, he would use this prayer wheel every single day. After he passed away, I found a way to get it into my hands. Because up to now, it's been almost exactly 23 long years ago since he passed away. When I got it, it was probably about 2 full complete years after he had sadly and tragically passed away from us. So after that, I successfully obtained it. This was because before I made the decision to become a monk, there were times when I would frequently go to visit him. He would often use this prayer wheel. At that time, the governmental policies had begun to loosen up a bit, becoming more flexible. This was especially true around the year 1980. Later, I became quite interested in this particular prayer wheel. If I were to use it in a classroom setting, I probably wouldn't use it for such a long time. Back at my own home before, I would often spin it whenever I had some available time. Once, the esteemed Khenpo Tsultrim Lodro thoughtfully said to me, "Now you're already like an old man indeed." I said, "Just because I use this prayer wheel, does that really make me an old man?" Because in Tibetan tradition, prayer wheels for the Sutra of Great Liberation are indeed generally used more by very elderly people. So that's exactly what he thought at the time, because back then I was quite young. It was 20 years ago. So now that I actually use it myself, perhaps it's even more fitting and appropriate. We've actually been consistently using it in our class for well over 10 years now. You all probably remember it quite clearly as well. On mine here, there's also a small, intricately designed prayer wheel with the sacred Avalokiteshvara mantra. So in my own personal life, for quite a significant portion of my daily time nowadays, I've also diligently tried to use this particular kind of prayer wheel as much as possible. Additionally, I also genuinely want to recite whenever I have available free time to pray to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas mentioned in the Holy Great Liberation Sutra. At the very least, after death, one absolutely won't fall into the 3 lower realms of existence. In this particular regard, I should certainly have confidence in myself. So I also sincerely hope that in the future, we might indeed do it as well. But for now, there's no need to go around doing this and that everywhere. It's quite unnecessary. When it's time to actually do something, we will provide it for everyone. Otherwise, right now, there are a lot of important things to do. This to do, that to do. Especially for some of us, maybe it's turning prayer wheels or making food offerings as well. So all sorts of other situations arise. In the very end, you might even truly go out and actively promote it yourself, and at the same time, others will certainly really have all kinds of comments. There's really no need for any of this. If we want to do it in the future, it might indeed be much more refined and certainly not necessarily that particularly big after all. Because you see, the previous editions of the Holy Great Liberation Sutra were all made with woodblock printing, so in that case there might be quite a lot. In the foreseeable future, it should also be entirely possible. If absolutely needed, we can certainly provide it to everyone, but right now, including the Tibetan and Chinese versions that we currently use, sometimes we may need to do a few things, some rather meticulous proofreading. Of course, as for the Tibetan version, it might not even need proofreading. The works of our predecessors, including what we talked about the day before yesterday, the style of the earlier translations was extremely, extremely rigorous. Generally speaking, the entire translation of the Tripitaka should be carefully considered in human history, perhaps most notably in Tibetan, especially among the early translation school within Tibetan. The translation style was the strictest. Even for us now, as later generations, this is very clear. So for our Tibetan version, There really shouldn't be any need to change a single word. But as for our Chinese version, we need to carefully compare it with the ancient Tibetan version and the valuable Dunhuang manuscripts. If there are any specific places that truly need to be added or supplemented, then we can also try to find effective and comprehensive ways to address that particular issue. Today, we will continue our important and insightful discussion. Yesterday, we already talked about the earlier foundational parts. We thoroughly discussed the profound merits and significant spiritual attainments of the 36,000 bodhisattvas, exploring their wisdom and compassionate actions in great detail. Today we will continue to discuss in greater detail the profound and extensive merits of these revered bodhisattvas. So what exactly are the remarkable and extraordinary merits that these bodhisattvas possess? They are endowed with truly unobstructed and boundless wisdom and are perfectly and comprehensively aware of all the intricate comings and goings of sentient beings across all realms. These bodhisattvas completely and fully understand, using their unobstructed and profound wisdom. Our current wisdom is obstructed, it has limitations. We might know one thing but not another. But the wisdom of a bodhisattva is wisdom without any obstacles at all. They skillfully understand the mind stream of sentient beings. They know the past and future lives of sentient beings, including the suffering and happiness they are experiencing now, and so on. Everything, absolutely everything. They also know the situation of these sentient beings within the cycle of samsara, the entire process of their comings and goings. Some sentient beings are in the hell realms and are directly reborn as hungry ghosts or animals, and then come to the human world. Some sentient beings come to the human world from the heavenly realms. As for these sentient beings in the human world in the future, some will fall into the 3 lower realms. Some will go to the 3 good destinies, and some may even attain nirvana and so on. Therefore, bodhisattvas have complete knowledge of the entire process of our birth and death as sentient beings. But as ordinary people, we truly do not know, and we simply cannot be certain. For example, today, among the people in this classroom, none of us know where this particular person came from before, or indeed where they will ultimately go in the future. Not to mention this individual's personal habits and specific preferences. We know absolutely nothing about all of these important things concerning him, because we actually do not know. When we are suffering today, we complain ourselves, why am I suffering much? And when we are happy, we wonder, why am I so happy? Even within these brief moments, the emotions of suffering and happiness, we are completely unaware of their causes. But as for bodhisattvas, they know directly and clearly. For those who are not bodhisattvas, some wise individuals, they may not know directly, but they can infer and understand. We can tell that this person's mood is very bad, so it must be that either they have some illness in this life, or there are some residual habits from a previous life affecting them. If this person's extensive work in spreading the Dharma and truly benefiting all beings is very extensive, we can also know this through careful inference. We can infer the entire profound process of their past and present lives. Therefore, bodhisattvas know completely the intricate circumstances of sentient beings' cycles of samsara and continuous rebirth. They inherently possess all profound samadhis, steadily approaching the unsurpassed, ultimate state of enlightenment, and so on. Because bodhisattvas are truly endowed with such deep samadhi and profound meditative concentration, this very meditative concentration, together with the unsurpassed Buddha, the enlightened one, unsurpassed means incomparable. So it is close to, or basically the same as, the Buddha's meditative concentration and samadhi. They are essentially the same, fundamentally interconnected. The Vimalakirti Sutra also clearly states, approaching the unsurpassed Buddha's sovereign wisdom, the profound samadhi of all bodhisattvas, which refers to their deep meditative absorption, which is actually almost equal to the Buddha's sovereign wisdom. They are nearly identical. And then after planting wholesome roots for a long time, they attain the Buddha's sovereign wisdom. As for these bodhisattvas, they do not plant wholesome roots for just a short time, a brief period. It is not just for one lifetime, but for many. Nor is it like the Shravakas or Pratyeka Buddhas, whose paths are distinct, who practice for 7 kalpas or 100 kalpas. It is not like that. It should be for countless, truly innumerable asamkhyeya kalpas, over innumerable, vast kalpas. They diligently plant wholesome roots. Because the unobstructed, profound wisdom of bodhisattvas is truly not easily accumulated within a mere short period of time. For example, let's consider a certain highly revered bodhisattva, whether it is their profound understanding of all virtuous and wholesome dharmas, or their accumulation of virtuous deeds. It is the result of accumulation over many lifetimes. So sometimes when we encounter certain bodhisattvas, we often say, he is a bodhisattva, he is a Buddha. How could we possibly compare to them? I am just an ordinary sentient being, an ordinary being bound by all kinds of fetters. My mind stream is heavily burdened by karma. There is simply no way to compare myself to a bodhisattva. It is incomparable. So there is really no way to compare. He has basically attained the profound wisdom of the Buddha's truly effortless wisdom, a wisdom that inherently knows all things, all phenomena, without any obstruction whatsoever, this kind of truly effortless and profound wisdom. A bodhisattva possesses these qualities. So what about the qualities or wisdom of the Buddha? What are they really like? They include the 10 powers, the 4 kinds of fearlessness, and the 18 unique qualities, which we often talk about. The Buddha's 10 powers, 4 fearlessnesses, and 18 unique qualities. In fact, this is discussed quite extensively in many Mahayana sutras and treatises, including the 5 treatises of Maitreya, as well as texts like The Entrance to the Path of Wisdom and so on. These texts all discuss this topic in considerable detail. There is also a Chinese work called The Treatise on the Meaning of Mahayana. The Treatise on the Meaning of Mahayana also cites many sources, including, for example, the profoundly significant Lankavatara Sutra, as well as the equally important Nirvana Sutra and the comprehensive Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra. Some of the Buddha's inherent qualities are extensively described in these sacred texts. According to the profound meaning articulated in the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra, these 10 powers are a bit different from the 10 powers we usually learn about in the Entering the Middle Way. How are they different? Among them, the 10 powers of the Bodhisattva include one called the power of firmness, which means their wisdom is very firm. And then there is the truly profound power of great loving kindness, the power of great compassion, as well as the dedicated power of diligence, the focused power of meditative concentration, and the deep power of wisdom, the power of tirelessness, the strength of never becoming weary, then the power of patience with the unborn, attaining the forbearance of the unarisen dharmas, as well as the profound power of liberation and the power of unobstructed wisdom, making 10 distinct powers altogether in total. These are the 10 powers of the Bodhisattva as explained in the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra. As for the 4 fearlessnesses, we usually discuss the 4 fearlessnesses from the perspective of the qualities of abandonment and realization, but according to the view of the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra, there is the fearlessness of hearing and upholding, meaning there is no fear in listening to and upholding the teachings. Then the fearlessness of liberation, having no fear whatsoever in the aspect of eliminating obstacles and attaining liberation. Also the fearlessness in the presence of the assembly, not being afraid when among a large group of people. For example, when we are being tested or reciting from memory, we won't tremble. Some people, when holding a Dharma text in their hands, are always like this, but for someone who has truly attained the 4 fearlessnesses, this is simply impossible. And then there is the fearlessness in answering difficult questions, not being afraid to respond to challenging questions. Otherwise, some people simply dare not accept questions from others. You can't ask, you can't ask. Some people get angry as soon as they're questioned. Are you trying to make things difficult for me? Do you have a problem with me? Actually, if you can answer, it's generally best not to actually get really angry. Of course, among the quite a few questions that were actually asked, some are indeed meant to make things difficult. This can usually be seen as well. Some sutras and treatises also mention there are several types of questions that shouldn't be answered. One type is asking something you already know the answer to. There's no need to answer such questions. Another type is when the person doesn't really have any doubts, but only to pretend to have questions. Some people deliberately want to make things difficult for you with such questions. So, regarding certain questions that are presented to you, if you choose not to provide an answer, or if you instead opt to respond with a counter question in return, that might actually be a bit better. Of course, some people genuinely do have doubts. If you truly need to provide an answer, then you absolutely should answer, of course. Most of us probably get a little bit nervous. I certainly do too sometimes. Not answering isn't an option, but if you do answer, well, it really depends on what specific kind of question the person is actually asking me. Giving a lecture is relatively easier. You can prepare in advance and talk about the parts you know. For the parts you don't know, you can just simply skip over them or simply avoid them. But when others ask questions, everyone can hear it very, very clearly. So if you truly don't answer, then indeed everyone knows, oh, this person must either not dare to answer or doesn't know how to answer or just doesn't want to answer. They can tell. So asking questions is also a kind of intellectual challenge indeed, but it's absolutely true that through asking questions thoughtfully, you can open up wisdom and understanding, or for others around you listening carefully. One person's question is actually a question many people have. That's also very important. In the past, after class, we often set aside some dedicated time for questions, but in recent years, there haven't been any formal Q&A sessions or oral examinations. So this year, because of the ongoing pandemic, it's been both our Q&A sessions and oral exams have been completely cancelled due to the ongoing pandemic. Maybe we'll see it in the future. Has the global pandemic ended yet completely now everywhere? It hasn't ended yet worldwide. Has it truly, honestly? What does almost over in China now really mean exactly? Really, truly? Oh, that's absolutely wonderful. Great, encouraging news indeed then for everyone. This is all about the profound four fearlessnesses. There's absolutely no need to be afraid at all. Not being afraid, that's one of them. And then there are indeed the 18 unshared dharmas. The great meaning of Mahayana doesn't explain them very clearly. According to our previous and highly regarded, well-known ornament of the Mahayana Sutras, we've talked about this before, right? There are 6 related to conduct and 6 related to realization, 3 related to wisdom and 3 related to activity. In general, these are explained in terms of body, speech, and mind. There are 18 characteristics unique to the Buddha, not shared with Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. Of course, as for the Bodhisattva, what is mentioned here, the 10 powers, the 4 fearlessnesses, and the 18 unique qualities. The Bodhisattva also possesses some corresponding merits related to these. He truly understands the gateways to virtuous destinies and carefully closes off the paths to evil realms. The Bodhisattva is able to open the doors to virtuous destinies, allowing countless sentient beings to enter the gateway to liberation, or to enter into the doors of the 3 virtuous destinies. He will forever close the doors to the evil realms, the 3 lower and truly unfortunate destinies. The main reason for this is the difference between practicing virtuous actions and practicing unwholesome actions. When it comes to good and evil, nowadays many people think that whatever they want to do is good, and whatever they don't want to do is bad. In fact, when it comes to distinguishing good from evil, many people seem to understand it on the surface and believe they know it themselves, but in reality they don't truly understand it. In this case, it's actually rather pitiable. In the future, when it comes to good and evil, we should know that it's not simply good because you want it to be, or evil because you want it to be. That's not how it is. It should be. As Nagarjuna Bodhisattva has already explained in the past, and I believe I have quoted it before as well, in our Nagarjuna's precious garland, it is said, actions arising from greed, anger, and ignorance are unwholesome. Actions not arising from greed, anger, and ignorance are wholesome. This means that all forms of greed, anger, and ignorance, as well as the actions generated by greed, anger, and ignorance, are all unwholesome actions. No matter what we do, some actions are directly rooted in greed, anger, or ignorance. Actions from greed, anger, or ignorance differ from the triggers themselves. For example, certain behaviors that arise from your greed are those triggered by anger or by ignorance. So nowadays, what many people call ignorance refers to a kind of blind, foolish behavior that cannot distinguish what to accept or reject. But it seems that nowadays many people don't even know what greed, anger, and ignorance are. This is a very sad thing. So I think if you don't understand the Buddhist principles of cause and effect and how to make choices, for those who have never studied Buddhism before, I think it's understandable and excusable. But for those who have studied Buddhism for a long time and have taken refuge for a long time,
If they still don't really know what is wholesome and what is unwholesome clearly today, that is quite a frightening and concerning thing indeed, truly. So I truly think we should all clearly understand the fundamental difference between good and evil clearly today. Next, the great merits of the compassionate bodhisattva are described as follows here specifically, regarding all sentient beings everywhere as if they were one's only beloved precious child, treating all sentient beings equally, truly seeing them as no different from your own beloved, cherished, precious, dearly loved only child. Because if you are especially compassionate towards sentient beings, then sentient beings will also be very good to you. If you treat sentient beings like a father treats his child, then sentient beings will also respect you as a father. So in the Compendium of All Dharma Sutra, it is also said, always delight in practicing kindness and patience, and do not harm any sentient being. If we can be patient and compassionate for a long time, compassion is usually manageable. But patience, especially when it comes to the wrongdoings of sentient beings, is very difficult. You will truly gain the profound respect of all sentient beings as if you were their own father. What exactly do you gain? You gain that all sentient beings will truly honor you as if you were their own father or their very own king. In this way, it shows that we treat sentient beings as if they were our only child, treating everyone equally and always caring for them in this way. But in actual practice, even though we have generated bodhicitta, sometimes it may indeed be the case that there is not the slightest discernible difference, and we truly protect and care for everyone with the utmost dedication, as if they were our very own family members. But it is not that easy. However, according to the view of Mahayana sutras and treatises, we should strive to do so, and so one is born into the 5 realms, manifesting various forms. As for bodhisattvas, they will deliberately take rebirth in the 6 realms, or rather in the 5 realms. If we consider and count the gods and asuras as a single, unified, and indeed one realm, then there are a total of 5 distinct realms of samsara. Within these 5 realms of samsara, in fact, bodhisattvas rely on the power of their vows to manifest what? They manifest in various forms that perfectly match each individual sentient being. As each being's unique appearance is distinctly different, they will appear in accordance with or corresponding to the forms of those beings. In hell, they appear in the form of hell beings. Among hungry ghosts, they take on the form of hungry ghosts. Among animals, they appear in the form of animals. Among humans, they take on a human form. And among humans, within the very ranks of kings, they appear in a form that corresponds precisely to that of a great king. Or among butchers, they take on the very form of a butcher to guide all sentient beings. Next, it clearly says, to liberate all sentient beings, one acts as the truly great king of physicians. So, what actually is a bodhisattva? Because they wish to liberate countless sentient beings and act as the great king of physicians. When they eventually become a Buddha, they are the great king of physicians. Even before becoming a Buddha, in fact, a bodhisattva is already an extraordinary and truly great king of physicians, possessing immense wisdom and profound compassion. A bodhisattva, while still in samsara, skillfully heals all kinds of illnesses. What particular state are they really very often in? They are often in the muddy mire of the cycle of birth and death, but they are never ever tainted by any afflictions whatsoever. Skillfully healing very again and again all kinds of debilitating illnesses of sentient beings, both of the mind and the body. Therefore, in our human world, bodhisattvas may manifest in all sorts of diverse forms. Some may appear as compassionate doctors or dedicated nurses and other healthcare professionals, using such profound and compassionate means to genuinely help and uplift others. Some individuals, often appearing as remarkably ordinary people in the bustling world, are quietly utilizing their unique and effective methods to gently heal your various mental and emotional afflictions. In this challenging and rapidly evolving day and age, mental illnesses are extremely serious. There used to be an organization, let's put it that way. Some years ago, there was one, a very prominent and globally recognized entity, specifically the World Health Organization, which is a specialized agency of the United Nations. When they meticulously conducted their comprehensive statistics, gathering data from across the entire world, they provided valuable insights into global health trends and challenges. The number of people with mental health issues, those individuals suffering from such illnesses, was well over 1 billion people. With a global population of approximately 7 billion, that means, quite astonishingly, 1 in every 10 people. Or rather, among every 7 people. It's a sobering thought that at least one person among us is struggling with their mental health. And it's a tragic reality that, on average, every 40 seconds, a life is lost to suicide.
So for humanity today in our modern world, it is essential. Mental illnesses are truly extremely serious issues indeed. On this point, none of us here should really think at all. It definitely isn't me. Those people might be. Among these 7 people, there are those with mental health issues, but I am definitely not one of them. We can't think like that. Maybe we think we are very healthy ourselves. But if you just go to the hospital for a checkup, or if you consult a qualified psychologist, in many places abroad, this is quite a common and accepted practice. On one hand, there are numerous medical doctors who specifically treat various mental illnesses and conditions, and on the other hand, there are also many dedicated medical doctors for physical health and well-being. Because we humans are a combination of body and mind, and since we are a combination of body and mind, if the body is unhealthy, you can directly find out through an ultrasound or a CT scan, and you can detect certain things, like where there are benign or malignant tumors and so on. But if there are benign or malignant issues in the mind, they are generally not easy to detect. Especially with the advanced scientific instruments we currently possess, they simply cannot accurately measure our intricate mental state. So, at this present time, in our contemporary world, there truly are significant differences in people's individual mental states. I talked to everyone about this important topic not long ago, recently, didn't I? Whether it's clinical depression or autism or obsessive-compulsive disorder and so on, there are many such serious mental health conditions today. There's also a serious disorder called bipolar disorder specifically. Actually, this one is quite frightening as well. I would like to discuss this matter with all of you. None of us here currently possess it. One can never truly be sure. If I provide a more comprehensive and general explanation, you could observe your own personal mind stream, which is a continuous spectrum of your thoughts and feelings. For instance, if you are experiencing a manic episode, among common mental illnesses, one is depression and the other is bipolar disorder. With bipolar disorder, you might often, for no apparent reason, experience significant mood shifts. Find yourself experiencing a certain emotion. When individuals are in a particularly good phase, they tend to be especially positive, genuinely upbeat, and their mind is often completely full of vibrant energy, leading to a more dynamic and enthusiastic outlook on life. However, when an individual experiences a manic episode, their imaginative faculties can become extraordinarily vivid and intensely detailed, and their thought processes can become exceptionally wild, expansive, and utterly unconstrained. They possess the remarkable capacity to envision and conceive of absolutely anything. Regarding their subsequent actions and behaviors, they might do many things that seem unbelievable, things that they would never normally do at all, and they might engage in a lot of such behaviors, for example. So typically, their depression and mania are like being on 2 completely different stages, almost entirely distinct. Their emotions are constantly switching back and forth, often quite rapidly, because when they're depressed, they're basically more introverted and might not want to interact with anyone at all. Or they might always have persistent thoughts of suicide, feeling profoundly that their life has absolutely no meaning or purpose. That's the kind of deeply ingrained mindset they often have. But when it comes to a state of mania, it's completely and utterly different from that experience. Even though they might still have some particular thoughts like wanting to commit suicide, those thoughts are still there. But what's even more important is that they bring a lot of pain to the people around them. What kind of profound pain is that? They do truly believe deep in their hearts the world is indeed so very ugly, and that the people who are in some way deeply connected to them are extremely bad to the extreme, to the point where even killing them wouldn't be a problem. There are also some things that are actually very minor, just trivial matters, but in their current state of mind, they become truly very huge, constantly getting blown completely out of proportion, and as a direct result, indeed, even they themselves can't understand their own emotions. So generally speaking, with this particular kind of bipolar disorder, it is indeed true that nowadays many individuals might genuinely think to themselves, this is absolutely impossible for me to have. My current mindset and emotional states are completely and utterly normal, and therefore I couldn't possibly be affected by such a condition. They often believe this about themselves, and are absolutely full of confidence in themselves, even when they've done a great many things quite wrong, things that are excessive or over the line. They don't notice it at all in the moment, and afterwards they don't really feel any regret either. They still truly think that everything they've done is completely reasonable and entirely justified. There are now effective treatment methods available for this kind of serious illness. There are also some medication-based treatments, as well as physical therapy methods and various treatment approaches from additional psychological counselors. Of course, some of these may indeed be quite beneficial, while others may not necessarily be helpful. But most importantly, many people now believe that through exercise, prostrations, or chanting mantras, as we have mentioned before, chanting the mantra of Akshabhya Buddha or the heart mantra of Guru Rinpoche, these are very important. Because in the age of degeneration, according to the biography of Guru Rinpoche, during the age of degeneration, all sorts of strange and inexplicable and many currently unnamed and mysterious diseases will directly and profoundly harm the delicate emotions and mental well-being of all sentient beings just like us. If we recite Guru Rinpoche's heart mantra or do prostrations ourselves, indeed it can truly be of great assistance and help. This is a way of relying on mantras and other external forces. Also, our regular meditation and spiritual practice by meditating, the mind can truly become calm and serene. This is also a very good and effective method. Additionally, using the profound wisdom of selflessness to deeply contemplate emptiness, this is also a very good and effective method. And even more importantly, it is a crucial aspect. Praying to the Yidam, to Guru Rinpoche, and to the Dharma protectors, in this particular and profound way, one's own personal mind stream may gradually become much more peaceful and truly serene and indeed tranquil. Also, it is important that you do not allow yourself to fall into a state of panic, as nowadays many individuals whose medical conditions are actually not that serious or life-threatening, but generally speaking, they tend to overreact and become overly anxious. Unlike before, nowadays there are many types of illnesses. And once these symptoms are mentioned, people often feel like they themselves have these very same symptoms. This includes some of our dedicated volunteers, and even some Dharma teachers, sometimes even really might not actually have true bipolar disorder, but are somewhat close to it. Because today, this person is especially positive and cheerful, and then tomorrow, for no apparent reason, towards the people around them, they can bring about all kinds of truly negative and undesirable effects. Whether it's crying loudly or making a dramatic scene, even when people around them try to genuinely comfort them, absolutely nothing seems to work at all. And sometimes, without any comforting, they just get better on their own. Everyone just can't accept it. No one knows what they're like today. Everyone is truly afraid that they're about to have yet another episode, but no one dares to say anything at all. They just gesture, meaning that they are indeed having another episode. That's precisely how they express it, like, So I really do think it's less common among men. But among women, it's not like you can say it's very common either. But occasionally, some people really do have it. There is no need to be afraid when this situation happens. Nowadays, a lot of people experience this kind of thing. I think it was back in 2007. So in 2007, there was a powerful TV documentary series, which later won a prestigious Emmy Award, I think actually. It was called The Secret Life of Manic Depression, specifically. It covered the whole detailed, complex process of manic depression thoroughly and completely, and how society really discriminates against people with it, how they themselves face their own psychological pain. Actually, when it comes to our emotions as humans, having these kinds of troubles shouldn't be something to fear. It's mentioned in Buddhist scriptures and treatises as well, that sentient beings' mind stream and afflictions often need to be adjusted. So, when it comes to some of our emotional shifts, we truly need to be acutely aware of them ourselves. I think being genuinely aware of your own mistakes and the significant problems caused by your own mindset is incredibly important. And slowly, gradually adjusting yourself. After making these adjustments, you will definitely return to normal. Many people's psychological illnesses are just like physical illnesses. Personally, I've had quite a few physical illnesses, but I've never had any psychological illnesses. There was a period in the past when I had something called ankylosing spondylitis, and I had therapeutic massages every single day. We also had a master who was truly skilled. Master Yuan Sheng, who is now volunteering at the construction site over there, he gave me massages for 3 or 4 years. Every afternoon he would give me a massage. But later on, I gradually got better. So some physical illnesses are also just temporary phases. They won't, and if they're not too serious, they won't be fatal. Psychological illnesses are also a kind of temporary phase. Because sentient beings have all kinds of karmic forces, sometimes we really do fall into mental illness. But it's just a phase. It won't last long. At such crucial times, you should also earnestly pray to your revered teacher. Doing this is indeed very helpful, especially in this modern era nowadays. There is something significant called what we often talk about, that is dual personality or multiple personality disorder. This really does exist. It seems that back in the 1970s era, specifically then, there was indeed an American person documented who apparently had more than 20 completely different, distinct, separate personalities altogether. Some of them had British personalities. Sometimes he would act like a Brit, and sometimes like someone from another country. And the diverse ages and varied lifestyles of these distinct personalities, including their unique skin tones and varying body weights, were all completely and remarkably different from one another. He would switch between them constantly every day. One day he would become a Brit, the very next day an American citizen, and the day immediately after that he might potentially turn into a man or a woman. Later he became quite famous around the world because of this reason. His compelling story was subsequently turned into popular novels, captivating movies, and engaging television shows. But this, in fact, was a truly real and significant situation. For an individual person, as we often say, it might very well be that within his own body, he was more suited to accommodate different intermediate beings, those who had not yet been reborn. When they had not yet been reborn, they would display all kinds of different and varied behaviors through him. It seems that even now, even to this day, there are still a few people, much like this, in Tibetan area. Sometimes they turn into a woman, and then they live entirely as a woman. After a while, they become a man. There are such cases. Although their physical body doesn't really change, their mindset, including their voice, their entire set of interests and state of being, are all completely different. This kind of situation exists. So in this world, people's mental states can sometimes indeed change. When there are changes, we shouldn't point fingers at those around us. Wow, this person is really so bad. Actually, many people themselves don't truly want to be especially quite bad. But whether it's due to the severe constraints of various afflictions or the powerful control of their accumulated karma, sometimes they may indeed go through a difficult period of significant trouble. But after some considerable time, they will return to normal. So whether we truly encounter someone with a physical illness, or indeed then someone with a mental illness, we should always protect them with genuine compassion. We must try our very best to truly understand their perspectives. And when the appropriate time is absolutely right, everyone will undoubtedly find the most accurate and suitable path for themselves. So I think that when it comes to the words of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they truly understand the mental states of sentient beings, as well as the various illnesses of their bodies. And they also give different medicines accordingly. This is what is meant by prescribing the right medicine for the illness. Here it says, according to the illness, the medicine is given, so that by taking it, one is forever freed from birth and death. As for these bodhisattvas, because sentient beings are different, they prescribe the right medicine for each individual case. Then, after these beings take the medicine, then all their temporary physical and mental sufferings are gradually and gently alleviated, little by little. In the end, they will forever leave behind the relentless waves of birth, aging, sickness, and death, and find true peace, the surging and tumultuous sea of suffering that is samsara. Ultimately, they will forever be truly free from such profound suffering and distress. All who hear of this will attain liberation without exception. These bodhisattvas' names, including Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva, and Manjushri Bodhisattva, their names, their sacred titles. Whoever hears them, there is no one who will not attain liberation. All beings will certainly attain ultimate liberation. So, when we attentively hear the sacred name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, when we hear the revered name of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, and when we hear the noble name of Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva, on the surface it may seem as if it doesn't mean much, just the same as hearing the name of a world-famous person, like hearing the name of Einstein, is the same as hearing the name of Manjushri Bodhisattva. Some people might say this. But although Einstein was a scientist, and he did make certain contributions to human society, he may not necessarily have accumulated merit over countless lifetimes and benefited sentient beings to such an extent. If it is Amitabha Buddha or Manjushri Bodhisattva, indeed, from a truly very long-term perspective, within our own mind stream, we plant an uncommon and quite unique virtuous root. Therefore, hearing the Buddha's sacred name truly brings forth many significant merits and profound blessings. Of course, it is primarily devout Buddhists who genuinely understand the intricate law of cause and effect. As for many others, particularly people living in our modern world today, tend to believe only what they see with their own eyes. They only acknowledge what they can see. If they can't see it, they may not accept it. But in actual fact, this particular kind of logic is quite unreliable. This is because what we can clearly see with our own naked eyes, what we can hear with our ears, is actually extremely limited in its scope and application among all the myriad things that exist within the vast universe. This includes our knowledge of astronomy and geography, as well as time and space. All of these are fundamentally beyond our grasp, let alone the workings of our own minds and the process of samsaric rebirth that has continued since beginningless time, and the endless wandering that will continue in the future. Therefore, we should employ very subtle and profound wisdom to carefully judge and thoroughly analyze these complex and intricate matters. To truly possess and embody such vast and immeasurable merits. So as for these revered and noble bodhisattvas, they truly possess such absolutely boundless, indeed, and immeasurable merits and virtues without any limit. In the past, they made offerings to countless Buddhas. As for the word in the past, it's actually not necessary. Nowadays, in some novels, you often see the phrase in the past. However, in the original text, simply stating made offerings, or perhaps once made offerings, is entirely sufficient for conveying the intended meaning and purpose. So, what did these bodhisattvas make offerings to? They truly made their offerings to countless Buddhas of the distant past. They have already made offerings to innumerable Buddhas. What else do they possess? They clearly perceive Buddha nature and know that Tathagata is eternal. They have completely, just as it is explained in the Ratnagotra Vibhaga, treatise on Buddha nature, they have clearly and truly seen Buddha nature in its essence. They have awakened to mind completely. At the same time, what do they actually and truly know? They know Tathagatagarbha abides in all sentient being. From the stage of ordinary beings to Buddhahood, it remains unchanged, unmoving throughout. How was it before? It exists in the same way afterwards. Moreover, this principle, it is said all sentient beings possess Buddha nature. This phrase, all sentient beings, truly doesn't even need the word etc. at all. What I am presenting here is not arbitrarily altered. Everything is indeed based on a very careful comparison between our Dunhuang manuscript and the Tibetan version. If we truly compare these two versions, in the future we will be able to produce the most reliable edition. It is often said, and the principle that one inherently possesses the Tathagatagarbha, and that is the concept, should be frequently explained to sentient beings. What exactly should be explained to all sentient beings? The profound principle that every single sentient being possesses the Buddha nature, the Tathagatagarbha. Just as it is clearly stated in the Nirvana Sutra, Buddha nature is inconceivable. The three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, are also inconceivable, and that all sentient beings possess Buddha nature, yet cannot realize it is likewise inconceivable. It speaks of several kinds of inconceivability. We have Buddha nature within our mind stream, which truly is something ordinary people cannot fathom. And the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are also truly inconceivable. Furthermore, the fact that all sentient beings indeed possess Buddha nature is in reality inconceivable. As for these principles, the Buddha explained clearly in the final Mahaparinirvana Sutra. He spoke about them with great clarity. We have already studied part of the Ratnagotra Vibhaga, treatise on Buddha nature, and if we do not pass away in the future, the scriptures we previously aspired to study, we will definitely finish teaching them. It's just a matter of precisely when we will do so, including the Ratnagotra Vibhaga, the Shurangama Sutra, the text, the Analects of Confucius, and whatever else remains unfinished, a considerable number of tasks that still require dedicated attention and completion. For instance, the comprehensive entering the middle way, a significant and foundational text, has not even been started yet. The above talks about the merits of these bodhisattvas. So which specific bodhisattvas exactly are below? First of all, his revered and sacred name is Manjushri Bodhisattva Mahasattva, Manjushri, the great bodhisattva, the merits of Manjushri Bodhisattva. We also said in the biographies of the 8 great bodhisattvas, as well, Manjushri Bodhisattva's primary merit is enabling all Buddhas of the 3 times to give rise to bodhicitta, including Amitabha Buddha and Shakyamuni Buddha. Previously, it was mentioned in the Sutra of the Contemplation of the Mind Ground. The great sage Manjushri is regarded as the mother of all Buddhas of the 3 times, because it is he who inspired them to give rise to bodhicitta. All the Tathagatas of the 10 directions first aroused bodhicitta due to Manjushri's power of guidance. It was Manjushri Bodhisattva who enabled the Tathagatas of the 10 directions to first give rise to bodhicitta. Therefore, the profound merit and boundless power of the great Bodhisattva Manjushri are truly inconceivable and beyond human comprehension. As we all widely know, Manjushri Bodhisattva, a revered figure in Buddhism, often resides at the sacred Mount Wutai, a place of deep spiritual significance. Among the 4 great sacred mountains, if we look at the actual prophecies in the authentic Buddhist scriptures, I personally think Mount Wutai is absolutely the most important sacred place. Of course, there are also many others, including the revered Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, as well as the great and wise Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, and also Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. Each has their own unique history. However, according to the ancient records detailed in the Buddhist scriptures, it is said that Mount Wutai in the Avatamsaka Sutra, when we used to visit Mount Wutai in the past, we would often cite a scriptural reference from the Avatamsaka Sutra. In the northeast, there is a dwelling place of a bodhisattva called the Great and Sacred Mount Qingliang. In the past, many venerable bodhisattvas often resided there in peace. At present, there is a bodhisattva named Manjushri who, along with 10,000 bodhisattva attendants, constantly expounds the profound Dharma with great compassion. So this significant scriptural evidence, which originates directly from the profound Avatamsaka Sutra, was later referenced in a notable academic work. This comprehensive publication, specifically titled A History of Chinese Buddhism, meticulously cited this very passage, highlighting its enduring importance and influence. Then a Tibetan scholar translated it meticulously into the Tibetan language, and at that time I also used it in the records of Mount Wutai. So, Manjushri Bodhisattva truly possesses immense and profound merit. If we have the wonderful opportunity, we should definitely go to the sacred Mount Wutai again, perhaps even for an extended visit. Originally, I thought that in 2017, it would mark the completion of 30 years. I plan to recite the Samantabhadra's aspiration to noble deeds at Qingliang Temple. In the end, an old monk wouldn't let me finish the recitation. Since I couldn't finish, I thought this kind of karmic connection turned out well. I'll go again in the future. My original intention to dedicate merit and to practice diligently in future. But later on, however, I might have to continue doing it. Perhaps this deep karmic connection will truly continue on in the future. So sometimes we also go out and see how those dear old monks are doing these days in the monastery. Here there is also the venerable and sacred Bodhisattva Mahasattva Dingguang. For the Mahasattvas mentioned later, they are not found in either the Tibetan or Dunhuang versions. If we don't have them, we can only after Manjushri Bodhisattva and used of Mahasattva. Others all refer to Bodhisattvas. In our Vimalakirti Sutra, they are also referred to as bodhisattvas. There is no mention of mahasattvas in between. Among the more than 10 items presently listed here, about 9 bodhisattvas also appear in the Vimalakirti Sutra as well, also indeed found. First is the revered Bodhisattva Dingguang. As for the great Dingguang Bodhisattva, indeed, there are some bodhisattvas we do not recognize. Perhaps there are many Buddhas below, including past Buddhas, present Buddhas, and future Buddhas, many of whom we do not recognize. There are also many bodhisattvas we are not very familiar with. So when we talk about them, we can only truly recite their names. That is absolutely all we can possibly do. But we deeply and profoundly feel that, for example, Bodhisattva Dingguang, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, these bodhisattvas, the names of Buddhas, the names of bodhisattvas, as well as the names of the Shravaka Arhats, and also the names of truly very renowned, highly eminent monks and great masters. In the future, it is indeed absolutely necessary for us to compile a dictionary of the names of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in Buddhism. It could also include English translations. It could potentially have Tibetan and Chinese as well, because sometimes when we really need to look something up, it's often very, very hard to find the absolutely correct script for it, you see. The actual name, especially the more well-known ones. For example, the Venerable Shariputra, Ananda, Maudgalyayana, and Purna, these are all well-known. But for the names of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that are not so famous, we might also need to meticulously compile the comprehensive names of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. In the future, those of us who possess knowledge of Tibetan and Chinese, we may indeed need to put in some significant effort in this particular area. This includes some names in English as well. I've noticed that some English names are often translated from Sanskrit or sometimes quite frequently from Tibetan, but some can also be translated by their meaning, which is a fascinating aspect. So what we might really need to do now, one important thing is to create a comprehensive dictionary, which is actually very, very important. As Buddhists, it's necessary to put effort into this area. Right now, on the nuns' side, they are all working on dictionaries for the 5 great treatises. For example, a dictionary for Madhyamaka terminology, they are only making it in Tibetan. But it's really necessary for us to eventually do it in both Tibetan and Chinese. However, if we do it, it's quite a large project. It's not that simple. On our side, the editorial office for the Vajrayana dictionary, I took a look at what they've done today, and in many places it might not be entirely sufficient yet. For example, some specific entries such as liberation view or emptiness view are actually quite long sentences, requiring more time to articulate fully. That's not what a dictionary is supposed to be. When we are carefully segmenting here, it truly seems that the segmentation of individual words and distinct phrases isn't being done very well at all. Of course, when we first started looking for these particular instances, we still have this issue. Still. Actually, we started last year, but due to the pandemic and various other reasons, we had to pause for a while. In the future, there are a few things we need to do. One is that from the treatises and scriptures we've already translated, we can extract these terms. And also from the works of great masters in the past. I hope that everyone present here, today I'm discussing this together with everyone here, since I don't have time to hold a separate meeting with them. There are some volunteers, but if there's only a beginning and no conclusion, that's not good either. So what else do we need to do? Right now in the Tripitaka, for example, whether it's our Vajra Samaja or the Action and Performance Tantras, there are versions in both the Chinese and Tibetan Tripitaka, and during the process of comparing them, we need to temporarily extract the words inside. When you are searching, please do not use overly long sentences. When carefully selecting specific words, you must either pick out the descriptive nouns, or pick out the adjectives, or pick out the verbs, including some adverbs. Back when we studied language, there was a distinction between content words and function words. I actually only learned these terms after I got to Ganzi. Content words and function words, I think I still have notes on that in my notebook. So for the function word parts, you shouldn't pick those out. For example, when I see the phrase liberation and view, the word that is positioned between liberation and view is a function word. So you really need to know precisely how to separate them. First, you should extract the nouns, and then subsequently, you can extract the verbs, and later figure out how to put them together. Actually, some dictionaries are language dictionaries, some are encyclopedic dictionaries, and some are specialized dictionaries. If we are using a specialized dictionary for Vajrayana Buddhism, then when we use it in the future, we must follow its logic and rules. If you don't understand the rules and just collect all the words and phrases like that, then the quality of the dictionary will definitely not be good. Actually, for a culture to truly exist and thrive, one important thing is the dictionary. Lexicography is very important. Another thing, speaking of the present, the dissemination on the internet. This is very important. So in the future, including some volunteers who are just starting to learn Kahaganga, they are still quite far from being able to compile a dictionary. So whether you remove ka or ga from the text, if we don't even really understand ka, kha, ga, anga here properly at all, and still want to participate in compiling a dictionary, the intention is certainly very good and sincere. But lexicography is a very profound field of knowledge internationally. If you don't understand the basic principles of this knowledge, compiling a dictionary is not that easy. So in the future, we may need to study it from various aspects. I hope that some of us, for example, if you look up Tibetan words, now it's very easy to search in the Kangyo, right? For instance, a certain Tantra treatise in Vajrayana, because we can clearly see that in the Kangyo, many of the important texts are called Tantra section in Tibetan, and in Chinese, it's the Great Consecration Sutra, or also known as the Vajrapik Sutra text. Actually, all these sutras are tantras. So if we compare the Tibetan and Chinese versions, if one of us can find a relatively suitable dictionary, we can identify a portion of the terms. Then processing these on the computer is now different from before and should be quite easy to understand. So for those of us who are truly bilingual, or for those individuals who know several different languages, it's truly great for you to participate as well. But if you participate, you must actually do something. Otherwise, if you just put your name on it, we call that a nominal president. Just that, or being an advisor, having far too many advisors, is also quite useless. We simply cannot consult them all anyway. It's truly a difficult situation. If we can consult, we certainly will. If not, then next I will extensively talk about Bodhisattva Dingguang and also Bodhisattva Nagarjuna. As for Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, it should be understood that it is indeed that very Bodhisattva, specifically Nagarjuna of the renowned Madhyamaka school. Because from the perspective of the Pure Land school, it should be clearly stated that the very first ancestor is indeed the revered Longmen Bodhisattva.
ngai thakban jikten de ngai thakban jikten de什么特别做的绕线呢raptogavi subject de agenti tenjogo.
When I was studying Madhyamika, let us first consider the prophecy of Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, because he is clearly mentioned in the Lankavatara Sutra. I also checked the Lankavatara Sutra. Actually, it was the original one. It should be during the northern and southern dynasties, translated by Bodhiruchi in the Lankavatara Sutra. There is clear evidence from the teachings of Nagarjuna Bodhisattva. In the great southern country, there is a truly virtuous bhikshu named Nagarjuna Bodhisattva who is effectively able to refute the views of existence and non-existence. First, it talks about the southern land area. There is a virtuous bhikshu there. His name is Nagarjuna Bodhisattva. He is able to refute both the views of existence and non-existence. He teaches people the Dharma, the supreme Mahayana Dharma, attains the stage of joy and is reborn in the land of bliss. As for our Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, his prophecy should have been translated by Bodhiruchi. Bodhiruchi is the one we mentioned earlier, the Bodhiruchi from the northern and southern dynasties period, not the one from the Tang dynasty. The Bodhiruchi from the Tang dynasty should be the one who translated the renowned Maharatnakuta Sutra into the Chinese language. In contrast, the Bodhiruchi from the northern and southern dynasties is the one who translated the sacred Ratnagotra Vibhaga. That was relatively early. It should be about 1,500 years ago from now by our estimation today. As for our great and venerable Master Tanluan, Master Tanluan became a monk at Mount Wutai at that time. Later, he wrote a commentary on the Mahasamnipata Sutra. At that time, he fell seriously ill and wished to attain longevity. In the end, he turned to a Taoist master for guidance. He believed that he had already achieved immortality. Once he encountered Bodhiruchi. He boasted in front of Bodhiruchi, saying that in Taoism we have methods for attaining immortality. Do you have anything like that? Then Bodhiruchi handed him the Contemplation Sutra and the Treatise on Rebirth. He said, what you have is only temporary longevity, but the true method for attaining immortality exists in Buddhism. He explained some of the Pure Land teachings. Later, Master Tanluan was deeply and profoundly attracted by this. He then diligently began to write a comprehensive commentary on the Treatise on Rebirth. He started to promote the Contemplation Sutra. Later, in his own vivid and natural visions, he saw a sage from India who appeared as a monk. This monk said, I am Bodhisattva Nagarjuna. He told him, you will be reborn in the land of ultimate bliss. Later, when Master Tanluan passed away, all kinds of auspicious signs appeared. He was reborn in the land of ultimate bliss. Afterwards, the emperor erected a stele in his honor. From then on, the Contemplation Sutra and his commentary on the Treatise on Rebirth was especially emphasized and promoted in China. I wonder if that emperor was Emperor Wu of Liang. Perhaps it was Emperor Wu of Liang, because at that time, Emperor Wu of Liang was indeed a great promoter of vegetarianism, abstaining from killing and releasing living beings. He was truly an extraordinary great bodhisattva. Why do I say this? Generally speaking, if we look at history, many powerful and influential kings and mighty emperors throughout the entire world, while they were alive and well and healthy, their ideals and spirit were promoted quite well. But once they passed away, there were very few who actually continued to carry out their orders. But it has been more than 1,500 years since Emperor Wu of Liang came to this world, and yet throughout China, whether in monasteries or among many lay Buddhist communities, vegetarianism has always been the primary and most significant practice. If this remarkable spirit can still be genuinely maintained to this very day, it is truly quite incredible and profoundly inspiring. without the power of aspiration from a great bodhisattva, at that time, surely the entire nation would have adopted vegetarianism as the main practice. But later on, that might not necessarily have been the case, actually. So sometimes it seems that indeed, whether it's these eminent monks and great virtuous ones, or the spread of the spirit of great accomplished masters, it can truly be said that it has been passed down for 1,000 years and continues to this very day, which is quite remarkable and indeed incredible. So, as I mentioned earlier about Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, actually in China, his profound and significant influence was particularly remarkable and deeply felt within the Pure Land tradition. As for Tibetan area, it was the Madhyamaka, middle way philosophy that spread more widely. In any case, everyone truly knows that he genuinely and joyfully attained rebirth in the Pure Land of ultimate bliss. In the end, he was reborn in the Pure Land of ultimate bliss. So regarding the Pure Land practice of seeking rebirth in the land of ultimate bliss, it has indeed been very well promoted in China, and this remains true even to this day. I think at that time it seemed that Master Shandao in China could be considered the first patriarch of the Pure Land tradition. If Bodhisattva Nagarjuna is regarded as the first patriarch, then he would be the second patriarch. During the Tang dynasty, it seemed that there weren't many people in Xi'an at that time. But because he consistently advocated for vegetarianism, even the local butchers eventually, since everyone was eating vegetarian food, the butcher's business suffered. Once, a butcher holding a knife went to confront Master Shandao, intending to take his life. At that moment, he saw visions of the land of ultimate bliss. He then immediately put down his sharp knife and was truly reborn in the Pure Land at once. So, as for the revered Master Shandao, he was indeed truly very remarkable. At that time, he explained the principles of the Contemplation Sutra very well. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before. In our Contemplation Sutra, the latter part is entirely about the profound method of rebirth within the 9 grades. Master Shandao had a particularly unique and insightful perspective on this significant topic. He firmly believed that among the various 9 grades of rebirth, the 3 upper grades are specifically for ordinary beings who earnestly follow the Mahayana path. As for the middle grades, the 3 types, upper middle, middle, and lower middle, he actually considered them to be 3 kinds of ordinary beings, those of the Shravaka vehicle and the human and heavenly vehicles. As for the 3 lower grades of rebirth, he believed they were for ordinary people burdened with heavy karmic offenses. In fact, all 9 grades of rebirth are attainable by ordinary beings. We should truly learn this profound point through the Contemplation Sutra, and everyone should certainly have this kind of unwavering confidence. Indeed, we all have a genuine hope for rebirth. Whether it's the Hinayana or the Mahayana, or even if one's karmic burden is exceedingly heavy, we are all truly included among them. So, we all have this profound hope. This is precisely how the Venerable Bodhisattva Nagarjuna explained it. Next is Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. As for the other bodhisattvas, I won't go into detail here. Everyone should have some understanding of them. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva is also well known to everyone. Then there is Mahastama Prapta Bodhisattva, Medicine King Bodhisattva, and Medicine Superior Bodhisattva, these 2. There to be a sutra called the Sutra on Contemplating 2 Bodhisattvas, Medicine King and Medicine Superior. It can dispel illnesses and prevent falling into evil destinies. This brings immense merit. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva and King of Dharma, Freedom Bodhisattva, as well as Lion's Roar Bodhisattva. Lion's Roar Bodhisattva is specifically mentioned in the Nirvana Sutra with a dedicated chapter called the Chapter of Lion's Roar Bodhisattva. There are also Dharani Bodhisattva, Treasure Store Bodhisattva, and Ever Diligent Bodhisattva. He is always diligent for the benefit of both self and others. It's not just being diligent today, being especially diligent, not even sleeping at night. Some of us, when we first become monks or first start learning Buddhism, are especially diligent, but particularly so at night. During the day, we just sleep and doze off. When the Dharma teacher is giving a lecture, we start dreaming. By the time his sweet dream is truly over, class is finished, just in time. There is indeed ever-diligent Bodhisattva, and then there is the never-resting Bodhisattva. Yes, always not resting, working hard every single day. Then there is the Faithful Appearance Bodhisattva. We will talk about him in the first volume below. There are quite a few stories about him. There are also the Unrivaled Bodhisattva, Maitreya Bodhisattva, and so on. These are all Bodhisattva Mahasattvas. This Mahasattva appears in both the Tibetan and the original texts. There are 36,000 of them. These are the venerable and esteemed bodhisattvas. And there are 800 million powerful and truly mighty heavenly beings. There are 800 million heavenly beings with truly great and immense power. There are also bhikshus, bhikshunis, upasakas, and upasikas, all respectfully present here, as well as devas, nagas, yaksas, humans, non-humans, and so on. Then there is Shakradevendra. Shakradevendra is indeed Indra, who is the king of all the gods. In the ancient Tibetan text, there is also a clear mention of Brahma. But in the Dunhuang version, this is not seen. In the ancient Tibetan text, both Shakradevendra, Indra, and Brahma are clearly mentioned, as well as countless heavenly beings. From the heavens above, they rain down an abundance of beautiful heavenly flowers and a cascade of precious, shimmering jewels from the sky. Innumerable melodious music played naturally by itself, filling the air with harmonious sounds. Beautiful and resonant sounds arose spontaneously, creating an atmosphere of profound wonder. Here, the significant Brahma Sambodhi heaven is specifically mentioned. In the Chinese text, this specifically refers to Brahma. However, the Tibetan translation of this particular passage is a bit different. This Chinese version is precisely the same as the ancient Dunhuang fragment. If we take the whole term Brahma Sambodhi, it seems to be a name for Indra. But the Tibetan text says that Brahma respectfully uses the exquisite heavenly incense of Sambara and carefully burns this sacred heavenly incense of Sambara to make devout offerings to the venerable Tathagata. So the Tibetan explanation and the Chinese explanation are slightly different. As for this particular Sambara, according to its Tibetan meaning, it appears to be the name of a celestial incense or a fragrant aromatic substance, perhaps even a divine offering. Brahma reverently holds the exquisite heavenly incense of Sambhara, and then he begins to burn it, or more precisely to make sacred offerings to the Tathagata. This is the profound meaning. So here, Brahma Sambodhi heaven truly means that Brahma devoutly burns this exquisite heavenly incense to make offerings to the Tathagata. This is just a different translation. I'm not sure how it is in Sanskrit. This translation is a bit different, but basically everything else. And then the smoke from their incense offerings spreads throughout the countless, innumerable, immeasurable, vast worlds in all 10 directions. They equally and respectfully make offerings to all the Buddhas in the 10 directions, as well as to all the sacred Dharma treasures in the 10 directions, and also to all the great assemblies of saints or great bodhisattvas in the 10 directions, with profound reverence. What is the purpose of this? It is for the benefit of the gods and so on, for this reason. What is the purpose of the gods making such offerings? It is to make offerings to all the Buddhas in order to seek the supreme path of the Mahayana. So many heavenly flowers, so much heavenly incense. What is the benefit of offering them to the Buddhas? Actually, this "for the benefit" is easier to explain in the following lines. In the Tibetan version, it is like this. All these celestial beings. What is their main purpose in making offerings to the Buddha? It is to seek the supreme path of the Mahayana. It is much easier to fully understand if I explain it in this particular way. At this significant point in time, the Buddha still had an immeasurable and countless number of sentient beings, all surrounded by the assembly, because of the Buddha's words at that time, which were full of compassion. Countless sentient beings listened carefully. There are bodhisattvas and arhats. Upasaka and upasika filled the assembly from all places. There are also numerous celestial beings, non-celestial beings present at that time. They surrounded the Buddha respectfully. The Buddha then went to the great Sala tree. All right, that's all for today.
Bandara Badna Sodargye Bandara Badna Sodargye Bandara Badna Sodargye